James Ham of the Insiders with us here. We'll talk more Kings basketball as we roll along, but I feel like it's been a while since we reminded everybody that the San Francisco 49ers kicked the Cowboys' ass last night.
Boom.
Seems like it's a good time to bring that subject matter back, as that was just an absolute beatdown on behalf of the San Francisco 49ers. Really, all kidding aside, just a surgical performance from Brock Purdy. He moved the ball so beautifully down the field on a couple of those drives, finding George Kittle a couple of times, 3 times in the end zone, making sure Christian McCaffrey got his touchdown to keep his streak going.
Yeah.
Man, I just walk away with each 49ers victory more and more impressed with their quarterback.
Yeah, that wasn't even like, I don't even know what to tell the Dallas Cowboys at the end of that. First of all, we kept hearing all about their defensive line, how they were going to put so much pressure. Like he got sacked once, he got hit twice. Like they just demolished that defensive line.
Yeah.
So hat tip to the front, to the offensive line, the blocking tight end, use check, but also Shanahan for game planning to keep a guy off, from getting destroyed back there. So that's big. But
don't leave that 170 yards on the ground for San Francisco too. So to speak to your point about the offensive line, 170 yards on the ground to go with keeping, Brock Purdy pretty comfortable back there.
They were really good.
I thought when you say comfortable back there, I thought that's what it was. It was so crazy to watch. Like the ball that he threw to the back of the end zone to Kittle, he just literally just stood there and just just soft tossed it to a guy in the back of the end zone. In the NFL, you typically can't do that. You can't throw a ball, and even the guy who is guarding Kittle was looking the wrong way and then caught off guard that the ball was coming over the top. Just absolutely perfection. But then there's a play late in the game that he threw to Juwan Jennings, and I rewound it for my son who was sitting next to me. I'm like, that literally just looks like a kid throwing a football to his dad in the backyard. Like, it doesn't matter what the Cowboys were doing. Everything looks so effortless and easy. And whether it's Ayuk getting open, which just seems to be a new thing, or it was, Purdy, we had that moment in the first half where he threw the two balls in a row that weren't great. And then people are like, oh, you see that? He was he barely missed on 2 shots. That's it. And then everything else, for the most part, throughout the rest of the night was almost perfect.
Yeah.
And just he throws the most catchable ball. It's just perfect. He just soft tosses it right into you at 30 yards. And that's the thing that I think that people are missing. It's that he's second in the NFL in yards per attempt. So he's averaging 9.3 yards per attempt. And the only one who's bigger, has a higher number, is Tua. And that's because he throws 8-yard passes and his guys go for 70 yards every time. But he's opened up the offense so much. He's figuring out how to find that middle and how to get the deep outs. And then that's going to create so much more space for McCaffrey. So you want to take away McCaffrey for one game? That's fine. We'll let Kittle go up the seam and just smoke you for 3 touchdowns. We'll find Ayuk all over the place. It was surgical. Absolutely surgical.
This is one of the best defenses that the NFL has to offer, and talk about the Dallas Cowboys. And they didn't have enough on the defensive end. And I don't think anybody has enough on the defensive end to match up and keep these guys from taking advantage of whatever mismatches they find that day, whether the mismatches with what they want to do with McCaffrey, Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, doesn't matter. And then, I'm not saying this is a guy that necessarily wins you games, but say you get all those guys covered. Oh, there goes Juwan, who's always open on 3rd down.
Always.
He just got too many weapons, man. And you talk about the way Brock Purdy, passes the ball. That sequence in the 3rd quarter or whatever, right, that finished with the back of the end zone throw to Kittle. I mean, the passes were unbelievable. The pinpoint pass on the pass that got called back because of the holding to Ayuk, that might have been the best pass of the night. That was a dime. And then to come right back on 3rd and 14 and hit that pass across the middle to Debo, right over the linebackers of the Cowboys. I mean, the accuracy, the understanding of who's going to be open and when to get it to him. This guy, he's the real deal. We've been saying it for a long time now, but there is no caveats, man. He's a good quarterback, really good quarterback.
I totally agree. I think we're gonna, at the end of the day, we're gonna look back at his career and we're gonna wonder why people question him so early. You can be like, okay, well, what if he ends up being an all-time great? What if he ends up being a guy who throws for 5,000 yards?
Well, I'll tell you why. And Damian and Jesse brought this up a couple weeks ago. We've never seen this before. This is crazy. This is crazy. The last pick in the draft, we barely even see these guys play, let alone become a top 10 quarterback in the league for a Super Bowl contending team. This is Brady's probably the closest story, but Kurt Warner, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is some craziness that we're seeing.
No, I think it is, but I think it also tells you that it doesn't matter where you draft a quarterback as long as you're getting the right guy. Because, I mean, how many every year we went through this list? I think me and you, when Damian wasn't here, we went through the list of all the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft over the course of the last 15 years. And more than half of them don't work out at all.
Yeah.
And so you're putting a lot of stock in these guys that you're taking at the top end of the draft, and sometimes they just don't get it. Even we go to this year's draft. Who's the kid for the Texans? CJ Stroud, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're hearing that he, on the Ledbetter test or whatever they're calling the test now for the NFL, he scored one of the worst scores that we've seen in years and years and years. He is crushing it.
Yeah.
He is killing teams. So whether you get it or you don't,
by the way, I believe he's the only other quarterback in the league that hasn't thrown an interception besides Brock Purdy.
Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes those things they're not good indicators. I mean, you can, Alex Smith scored so high and the 49ers took him over Aaron Rodgers, who did well, but didn't put up the same type.
You know that story.
Yeah.
As to why Mike Nolan went with him. You hear that story?
Uh-oh.
Mike Nolan went with Alex Smith because when he met with him, Alex Smith opened his car door for his mother.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Mike Nolan.
Where's he coaching at?
Well,
that's a good question.
Just trying to think about it. I don't know.
Still got a suit on, I'm sure.
There's some indicators though, like when you're going through and you're trying to decide on draft picks or whatever, there are some things that you can look at and pull out like that. I'm not saying that that's the reason why you do it, why you draft a player like that, but there is a certain amount of things like, do they show respect? Do they have an understanding? Can they prepare for an interview? Can they present themselves the right way? That's part of it, especially if you're going to be a top overall pick and you're going to be the face of a franchise. They hope for years. But at the same time, you got to draft players that can just flat out play. Right. The 49ers could have, this is just pointed out, they could have not taken Purdy with the final pick in the draft, and then they could have tried to sign him as a free agent, right? And who knows if they would have got him or not. But look at how big of a miss that would have been with a 7th round pick. And, I joke around about how, don't trade your 7th round picks if you're the Niners, because that's where you have your most success. But sometimes there isn't pressure at that point for you to not only choose the right guy, but also to choose a guy that he now doesn't have pressure. Yeah. His pressure is, can you make the team? Right. And that's a different pressure because that's trying to achieve something that's out in front of you as opposed to living up to something. And that's totally different. And so I find a lot of young quarterbacks, a lot of, especially in the NFL, a lot of young quarterbacks, they just can't live up to what they should be. Yeah. And they usually play for bad teams. Their first 2 seasons, they usually get battered. Who's the kid? Is it Sam Howell that's on pace to get sacked 99 times?
Yeah, he's getting destroyed.
But
he's got one more than Daniel Jones. We've been harping over how much Daniel Jones has been getting, and he's got one more.
Yeah. Well, again, if you're made like a bobblehead like Daniel Jones,
leave Daniel Jones alone.
Poor Daniel Jones. What did he do to anybody? My goodness.
He padded someone's stats. That's what he does.
Daniel Jones.
Real quick, I also want to give more love to a conversation that Dame and Jesse brought to the forefront a couple weeks ago. I think maybe even before I don't know. It was recent, and I really didn't know how to answer it. And look, we're in the middle of the season. We're 5 games in, so
Yeah.
I don't need to be talking about 5 years from now. But I think Jesse asked the question: if Brock is good, does this extend the window for this team to be really good, to be an elite team? And yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you got a guy that is going to be, a top 10 quarterback in this league that you can win games. I mean, the rankings or whatever, but you can win a boatload of games with this guy every single year. Yeah, if Kittle's getting a little older, it may not hurt as much because you've got that guy. Or, if you have to release a guy because of cap situations, you still got your Purdy there or whatever the case may be. And I was just thinking back to that last night as we were watching him do what he does. It kind of feels like you need talent. You definitely need talent. But as long as Purdy and Kyle Shanahan are together, seems like that's a great basis because those two are perfect for each other.
Yeah, I think it might play into the bigger discussion about Purdy and about the situation he's in. So we're going to have to get to a point where, and it might be relatively soon because, Brandon Ayuk is playing out his final year and they can do some stuff, to keep him around. But Kittle is getting older, what's 31 years old or whatever it is. Can Purdy make the next generation of players? Because you talk about like all of these weapons that he has around him. Well, Christian McCaffrey was outstanding before he got to the 49ers. The only problem he had was injury issues. Debo was 2 years ago was an all pro. Kittle was an all pro at some point in his career. Ayuk, you're kind of seeing how well he played last year with Purdy and now he's taken this step. But in order for Purdy to like be able to have a legacy that you're talking about, where we're talking about he's a quarterback for the 49ers for 15 years, and during that 15 years, maybe they win 3 or 4 Super Bowls, or at least they get there quite a few times. In order for that to happen, he's gonna outlive all of these specialty players that he has right now, especially the McCaffrey and the Kittle, and maybe even Debo. Like he should be here a long time after those guys. Can he create and help create the next grouping? And that's why I think, Tom Brady is one of the greatest. Well, he is the greatest that we ever saw, right? Because Tom Brady very, very seldom did he get a star level player to play with him. The only time I can remember was Randy Moss. Outside of that, everyone else he helped create. So you can say, who's his wide receiver that
Edelman.
No, before Edelman.
Gronk is special.
Well, Gronk was special, but again, that's a guy he made. That Tom Brady and his style of play helped create Gronk, right? Where like I don't know, Tony Gonzalez was great. It didn't matter who his quarterback was. Gronkowski was great.
Tim Brown was great.
Yeah.
Tim Brown had 47 different starting quarterbacks. That's a great wide receiver right there.
Is that how many?
No, I think it was like, I think it was some absurd number like 17.
Yeah. I
He
mean,
had 17 different quarterbacks throwing the ball.
it's funny. That makes sense why Tim Brown was always, for me, watching Tim Brown versus watching Jerry Rice. So Jerry Rice caught, so many passes, but a lot over the shoulder, right? He was so famous at making the great grab over the shoulder or, running full speed, catching the ball, or, the quick slant where he's in motion and he's moving towards the end zone. Tim Brown, I don't remember ever once catching ball over the shoulder. Every single time he was looking at his quarterback, back facing the quarterback. And it was probably because he had no idea who was throwing it to him at that point. He was just making sure it wasn't like Jeff George or Kerry Collins or
you got Rich Gannon.
Rich Gannon.
They took it to new heights.
Yeah.
You're listening to D-Lo and KC along with James Ham here on KIFM West Sacramento 98.5 FM KRX QHD2 Sacramento ESPN 1320, always live on the free Odyssey app. Of course, we want to talk Kings basketball as well. I do want to mention this. You said something, Hammer, about Brock Purdy that caught my attention and made me do a quick little bit of research. Brock Purdy right now, First in the league in interceptions, hasn't thrown anyone along with C.J. Stroud. He's number 1 in QBR. He's number 1 in quarterback ranking.
Yep.
Yes, those are two different things. He's number 2 in completion percentage. And James, as you outlined, the stat that got me looking this up in the first place, he's number 2 in yards per pass. He's 7th in the league in touchdowns. And given the way that this works, and I think I heard Kyle Madsen say this morning, Brock Purdy is the MVP of the NFL right now. That's how the award works, whether people like it or not. He is the best player on the specifically, he's the quarterback. And he's a really, really good quarterback on the best team. Again, we're 5 weeks in. None of this is going to matter until we get 15 weeks in.
Right.
And so on. But really, really incredible numbers from Brock Purdy that kind of killed the game manager notion when you look at how all of these put together have made him one of the top all of these numbers put together have made him one of the top quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah, what he's doing is crazy. I remember at the beginning of the season, like I said, I think he is a quarterback that can throw for right around 4,300 yards and right around 32 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
He's right now on pace for like 4,335 yards and 30 and a half touchdowns. Mm-hmm. That's what he's pacing at. Like this dude just, does he have the weapons? Yes, he has the weapons. But like, it's funny, like watching the chat as we're talking about this, Wes Welker, that's who, like, if you don't think that Tom Brady made Wes Welker, I don't know what you're like. If you watch football, like Wes Welker, like did nothing in his rookie season, his second season, he got 29 balls for the Miami Dolphins, his third season, 67 balls for 687 yards. The next season, he leads the league with 112 yards and with 112 catches, 1,175 yards. And then that's what he does for the rest of his career. He's leading the league or right at the league leader in catches and yards and everything else. Like certain quarterbacks, it doesn't matter who you throw with them, they can just go and create something. And I think that's something that we've seen from the Packers for years, where like whether we don't like Aaron Rodgers or whatever, Aaron Rodgers always has one wide receiver that he's helped to become like take it to the next level. And maybe there's a problem because he's so hyper focused on one guy, but you can just go back. He always has a 1,200-yard receiver. He always has a guy with a bunch of touchdowns, whether it's Donald Driver, just go back through all of his lineage of guys. And if they leave and go somewhere else, they're not good. They're great with him, the Randall Cobb or whatever, like all of these players that you're looking at, he really does help create at least one. But there are other guys that like they play with great wide receivers. Like, I think Peyton Manning is a guy who played with a lot of great wide receivers. Not only was he great, but he helped make the guys around him great. But whether it's Marvin Harrison or it's Reggie Wayne, like there's a good chance they could have been great receivers other places. They were great wide receivers together.
Well, that's the Jerry Rice case, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. People talk about Jerry all the time playing with the great guys.
Like back-to-back Hall of Famers.
I'm careful of saying that in sports football specifically, because that's no different than Dan Orlovsky saying Brock Purdy's only good because he's with Kyle Shanahan and got weapons. Like, once again, chicken or the egg situation. Are you good because you have weapons, or are your weapons good because they have you?
Yeah.
They need football is the ultimate game where you guys need each other. Tom Brady can be pretty good, but Walker, Deion Branch, Edelman, these guys, they ran the routes to get open.
Austin,
caught the ball.
What's my guy's name? Austin Miles.
Oh, the Cowboys.
Miles
guy?
Austin.
Miles
Austin. Miles Austin. He's still eating off Tony Romo's plate. Like Tony Romo made him a millionaire a couple of times over after a good couple of seasons in Dallas. He went off, signed somewhere else, and that was the end of Miles Austin.
Well, they said that's not necessarily why it ended for Miles Austin.
Uh-oh.
They also attribute that to other things.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it ended because he left Tony Romo. Like
well,
you can attribute to you can bring up all the other things you want to. Like,
not noticing the elephant in the room here.
I guess what the hell is the elephant?
His girlfriend.
Oh, I don't remember.
I don't know.
It's Kim's girlfriend, Kim Kardashian.
Oh, he dated Kim?
Yeah, and as soon as he dated
that.
Kim, fell off.
Mm.
Them lights.
Okay.
He wouldn't be the last one that happened to.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like that's what they always say. Now I don't think so. I give more credit to Tony Romo than give shade to Kim Kardashian. But I'm just saying that's what the people say.
Yeah, and with Purdy, I want to see if he can. If like, look, he's got a great squad here. I think he's managing this squad incredibly well, and he's doing a great job. The question is, like, when these guys get older, if he's going to be the guy that extends this and makes this into like a dynasty, then he's going to have to eventually create some of these guys himself. Help
I didn't even
create
know
them.
Kim Kardashian was a thing when Miles Austin was catching passes.
Yeah, she was for sure.
Wow.
She went and found
Like
Miles Austin.
2008, 2009. When did she become a thing?
I don't know the date specifically, but I feel like that was one of her first boyfriends. I think he might have been after Reggie, like one of her first boyfriends after Reggie Bush, I believe.
Oh yeah, because you got to put that one there. Like, so was that long ago? Reggie Bush.
Let's go to the Kings. That way I don't have to worry about trying to make a point and it get thrown off because of Kardashian. As far as we know, there's no Kardashians involved with Sacramento.
No.
Well, it's good because
not
Tristan
anymore.
Thompson is no longer.
TT.
Not
Got a shout out
anymore.
on Drake's album.
Yeah.
TT trying to make the league.
Canada, stand up.
He did say TT, just for the record. James, can we dive a little deeper into Sasha's debut?
Yeah.
Kenny had said early yesterday, Sasha, we got to see Sasha play a lot of minutes tonight.
Dead wrong about that one.
And it was like we're at halftime. Sasha's really just, maybe he's just maybe load managing. Maybe he's just not playing this one. And then he just kind of waltzes in halfway through the third, drops 12, leaves. What was the, I mean, can you even venture a guess as to what the strategy was entering that game for Mike Brown and his usage of Sasha Vezenkov in his first NBA game?
Okay, so I meant to ask Mike this on Saturday while I was in the scrum, and I got to the end. It was a weird day. Saturday was a weird scrum day. We had some, like, it just was weird. We get to the end, and I was going to ask, like, how he's going to handle Sasha, because what we've seen at practice is that Sasha is with the third team. We have seen that, like, almost every day. He's always playing with Alex Len, so you have your starters, which we all know the starters. And then the second unit, you got JaVale McGee at center. You got Trey Lyles at the power. You got Davion and Malik, and you've got Chris Duarte. So I personally, again, I have not spoken to Mike about this specifically, and I will this week. Like, we'll have every opportunity probably tomorrow to ask Mike about it. But I liken it to what we saw last year, where Mike started KZ Okpala the first 3 games of the season, and he made Keegan Murray not just walk in the door and you're the starter and you're the guy. There's a certain amount of, you need to be here, you need to earn it. And it's not so much that they have to stand out or something. It's that Mike isn't going to be disrespectful for the guy who's been here all summer long and was here last year and has been working out, trying to get his, trying to, earn his job.
Mhm.
And so you don't want to just take a guy's job away who did nothing, but just because someone else showed up. Now, what if it's Sabonis? You trade for Sabonis. Yeah, Sabonis is your starting center. We're sorry, Rashawn. But we're talking about like a 7, 8, 9 man in your rotation to start. And so I think there's a certain amount of adjustment that Sasha needs to make. We watched him make mistakes in the offense. Like, I know he was incredible on the cuts. There were a couple of those that he should not have cut. And there was one point where Kessler Edwards went to go pass it to him, and Sasha had cut, when that's not their offense. Is you have a guy in the corner, you have a guy at the top of the key on the right-hand side, one at the top of the key on the left-hand side, and a guy in the corner, and then a big in the middle. The guys over on the elbow area are supposed to go set a screen for the guy in the corner, give the dribble handoff, and the guy's supposed to come back out, where the big is waiting to set another screen, and Sasha kept leaving his post. So I think there's a little bit about Sasha needing to learn the offense, but you can already see just how naturally good he is. Like, I don't know. It's like you go to the gym and you're playing, and there's some older guy on the court who's just smarter than everybody else, and every time you look, he's wide open, waiting for the ball underneath the basket, and just lays it up. And you're like, what just happened? And he just does it to you the whole entire game. And that's what Sasha is. I was super impressed with what he did. I wouldn't worry about when he came in the game and when he didn't. I think what we're seeing right now is that Mike, if one thing I'd really bring out is that Mike used him as a small forward. He used him in a lineup with JaVale McGee and with Trey Lyles. As of right now, there's going to come a point where he's got to make a decision on what he's going to do here. Mike Brown has to make this decision. And it's whether he's going to play JaVale McGee as his backup center or whether Lyles is going to be there. And then the other player who's going to be impacted by that, in my opinion, is probably Chris Duarte. Either you're going to play JaVale or you're going to play Chris Duarte. You're not going to play them both. And so, because Sasha is going to play, he's too smart. He needs to adjust. He needs to make sure he's doing the right things defensively. He's still getting acclimated. But I also think Mike was being, like, you have to put someone through at least some of the steps. Sasha doesn't have to go get Chick-fil-A like Keegan Murray did all last season. And he doesn't have to bring donuts to practice. But what he does have to do is he has to earn his stripes to get on the court. And he's in that process of doing it. And I would say by game 2 or game 3, we're going to see a lot more Sasha. We're going to see him move into that second unit at some point, and I expect him to be there playing quite a bit.
So do you think, because you're talking about Sasha, but one of the things stuck out to me with that lineup that you talk about with JaVale, Trey Lyles, and Sasha, do you think that we've kind of underestimated how much we see JaVale McGee on a nightly basis? There's I would say my NBA buddy, we were talking back and forth when this happened, and I was like, yeah, see JaVale depending on the matchup, and that's cool to see. And he's like, nah, I think you'll see him every night. Like, I think he's going to play like 15 minutes a night, every night. I said, for real? And he was kind of adamant about it, and I just kind of brushed it off. But then you get the first preseason game, and JaVale was like, he was in there, and everybody else had to kind of work around him. Do you think that's just one preseason game, or do you think maybe, we've underestimated how much we'll see JaVale?
No, I think initially, early in the season, we probably have underestimated because, I mean, like, look, if you're going to pay Trey Lyles $8 million a year, he's playing. If you're going to pay Sasha Vezenkov, a 3-year, $21 million deal or $20 million, like, there's a good chance he's playing. So when JaVale became available, I was surprised how excited the Kings were. Really excited, like we're probably going to get JaVale. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then it was like, oh yeah, we're excited about it. I'm like, okay, like how excited can you be? And I think the one thing JaVale has to show, like he wasn't good last year. I mean, he was bad enough that Dallas at the end of the season decided to pay him out the next 2 years instead of being there. And so, like, he has to prove that he can be part of a winning of what's happening. And at 35, like, he needs to show that he can still do it. Like, it's one thing, we keep hearing that, he's got such a big voice and, he's a guy talking after practice and he's taking on a leadership role and all this stuff. It's like, okay, well, who else did that? Oh, Tristan Thompson. Like, at some point, you have to show that you can actually be part of the winning and part of what's going on, or it's just like kind of noise. And so JaVale still has to prove that, in my opinion, because he's coming off like a season where you're almost like, oh, like, who are you and what are you to this team? And it ended up with Dallas. He was nothing.
I think that's more about Dallas than it is JaVale. And
it might be
you might be right. Like, I have no idea what JaVale needs to earn in this locker room or not. But I'd push back a little bit against your idea and say he probably doesn't, only because I think one of the big reasons he's here is I'm guessing he has a relationship with Mike Brown.
Of course.
Mike, I'm guessing, is probably pretty confident in what he brings into situations like this. And that probably plays it's not the Sabonis situation where you trade for Domantas Sabonis should have started. It's not that, but it's a comfort level that he has with I wonder if it's a comfort level that he has with Mike Brown.
I agree that there is a comfort level and that Mike is going to rely on him for a certain amount of things, especially on the defensive end. But again, you have to show that you're part of a team that can win now. Like, we're not talking about JaVale 5 years ago. It's a different player. And while his skill set might be similar, it's not quite the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, look, I think JaVale McGee can be a very productive player for this team. I just am surprised that he went from a Dallas Maverick to a rotational player on a 48 win team that is the Sacramento Kings like that quick. And it sure does look like he has. Like, and I'll even bring it back to last season. Like Sean Cunningham, who's my partner at the Kings beat, like, he doesn't get things wrong. Like, neither one of us are reporters who are out there like putting stuff out there that are just flat out wrong. We can like give an opinion on whether we think Kyle Kuzma would fit with the Sacramento Kings, but that's just, again, it's analysis. We're not saying that's going to happen. We're not saying like, so Sean last year during training camp kept telling us that he was hearing that there's a good chance that we're going to see a lot of Rashawn Holmes and Domantas Sabonis together on the court.
Mm-hmm.
We never saw it once.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but I asked Rashawn Holmes about it at one point. He said he had never played with Sabonis ever, but he had played against him every day at practice. So, like, it's one of those things where I think we did sort of start to assume that JaVale was like a third center and Trey Lyles was still going to be that number two. But now they're trying to test things out. They're trying to see if Sasha can play the three. They're trying to see ways that they can get all of these players on the court.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, like, again, I don't think you can play both JaVale McGee full-time minutes and a guy like Chris Duarte. You're going to need those minutes. Like, in order for Chris Duarte to play, like, Trey Lyles has to play the 5, Sasha Vezenkov has to play the 4, and Chris Duarte would be your backup 3.
Mm-hmm.
If not, it's going to be, JaVale at center, Trey Lyles at the 4,
Mm-hmm.
and Sasha's going to play more of the 3. And even still, there's just not that many minutes. There's not. Especially if, like, Harrison Barnes walks out on the court and looks like prime Harrison Barnes like he did last night, where you're just like, he looks like he's in phenomenal shape. He understands the offense. He's making these cuts, and everyone's like, what in the world? Like, if that's who you're getting, and you can still get that for 2 or 3 years of Harrison Barnes, there's nothing that says a Harrison Barnes game has to fall off the map because he's 31. So that means that there's not going to be a lot of minutes for these other guys because Keegan Murray is only going to get more minutes. We're seeing that. And Domantas Sabonis, he ain't giving up any of his 34, 35 minutes a night. He's not. Neither is De'Aaron Fox. So these other guys are in a dogfight for all these minutes. I know you hate that term.
But it's understood. It's understood how it all shakes out. The Trey Lyles thing is interesting because we saw it in the playoffs. And so I think we all kind of rocked with this. This is probably what we're going to see a lot. Though it was certainly interesting to see Sasha take the floor with the personnel that he took the floor with. Not the makeup of names, just the fact that Alex Len was in and Trey Lyles was in. And it's like, oh, he's a 3? Okay. Let's see how this looks. Look fine to me. I don't know how that differentiates when, the 4 is Harrison or Keegan and it's Domantas. I don't know like how all of that works, but it was certainly fascinating to watch last night as my stream lagged through that game.
Oof.
My stream, I had no problems.
Okay, no one needs to hear that.
Because I have the worst Wi-Fi ever.
Well,
like, we're used to frozen ham, and I'm sitting there watching the whole game. So I would say the first play too, where Sasha makes a back cut, and then he threw up the most European layup attempt that I've ever seen. Like, oh no, he went underhand. Like, what? And he missed. From that moment on, I was just like, this dude is really, really smart. He is smarter than everyone else on the court. That's what you're watching, a dude who just like, oh, where'd he go? Oh, he's under the basket. Your dude just, like, how did he get over there? And how did they find him? And it didn't matter how bad the pass was. Scooped it up, put it in the basket. Like,
he's the Brock Purdy of basketball.
he made it look so easy. I guess because the the Kings have all those weapons. They just made them look
That's
so
what
much
it is.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is. Anybody could do it in Mike Brown's system.
Anybody,
I
You
guess.
could just
that's
put
what it
anyone
is.
in there.
If
Yeah,
you threw Marvin Bagley and Mike Brown's
That's
system,
it.
he'd be
He'd be
dominant.
fine.
You know,
Steady
that's what
There it is.
fighting for the 8th center role in Detroit.
Yeah, let me just voice my frustrations again. Why did they lie to us? That game was not on NBC Sports. It was California.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that either.
Yeah.
It was
That's-
on their
Funk Flex,
schedule.
you lied.
Yeah, it was on the schedule to be on NBC. All of them were. All of them are. Now I don't know what to think.
Now I can't
Unless
trust
it's
them.
on ESPN or NBA TV, I don't know where
No,
to
the
find
rest
the
of
game.
them are the final. I believe the final. There's one game that's on NBC. Originally, that's how it was. Like I don't know why the Kings added those to the schedule because I went and looked too, and I'm like, this is not what I've been told at all.
Yeah.
So there's one more game that's on. There's one game that's on NBC Sports California. There's I think one on ESPN and two on NBA TV. So the rest are televised 100%. This was the only game that was circled and said this is very specifically only stream. And it
You
literally
lied.
they want like 6 figures for this. That's why. Like you can't sell it to your advertising people. You can't say, "Hey, do you want to pick up this game? Do you want to support this game?" Because the NBA still charges the same as they for preseason as they do for the regular season games.
Pay the 6 figures. My man's buying franchises. Pocket watching here, like pay the 6 figures, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll come back. I want to talk with James. We want to talk with James about Davion Mitchell and Keegan Murray as well. And I'm sorry, have we not referenced Sabonis's little shot from the free throw line, little free throw line elbow for Domantas Sabonis? All of the demons were exercised last night in the loss. We'll come back. It's Steeler and Casey along with James Hammond, the Insiders here on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. Just because you guys are annoying the shit out of me, I'm going to point this out. Miles Austin dated Kim Kardashian briefly in 2010, had his best year of his career.
Oh.
With Kim?
In 2010, then got hurt, came back, had like the third best season of his career, then got traded to Cleveland where he sucked.
Oh, now that's the killer.
Only thing worse than a Kardashian curse is a Cleveland Browns curse. He did have a year with Dallas where he was really bad. That's why they cut his ass. No, we didn't do pocket watching. Kenny said pocket watching, so I just hit the music. That's all. Yeah, but securing the beam. I know you're really trying to make this work. He came back and had a really good year after getting hurt. And then a year he got traded to Cleveland. He got married. So maybe it's his wife's fault. Hopefully my man's still married. My man's still married. Yep. He's still married. Okay. Max Crosby.
Yeah, this is like Mike's got some work to do, but the panic that I hear from people is like, man, this is the same thing he did last year where everyone's like, oh man, is
What are
Keegan
people
like this?"
panicking over?
That it was Sasha playing so late.
Oh.
Yeah, just
silly.
that and the speculation because what we've seen in practices and like we started hearing, oh, maybe Kessler Edwards is no, Kessler Edwards is wearing the same color jersey that Sasha was. Like that's like who they're gonna put. Chris Duarte is who they would like to see fill a role here. I felt bad for him.
Yeah, he struggled.
That was
had a tough evening.
Struggle bus. That was bad. Nothing looked natural. And you're like, oof.
Yeah, that was tough.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Apparently, that F Dallas shirt that George Kittle was wearing is available at carawayclothing.com. That's a shoot. I'm serious. Look at your mentions.
That is very funny.
Oh, look, there's a Malik Monk shirt right there. That's a lie. There's not.
Malik.
Good stuff. Shout out to my people over at Caraway Clothing. Need to get one.
Spelled wrong. And I'm sure it's right for them, but
it's a little too. I don't think I'd walk around with curse words on.
Oh, you wouldn't wear that.
That's not really my thing.
No, I didn't mean fuck it spelled wrong. I meant Caraway spelled wrong. They use they're a 2R Caraway.
We we got split up in Texas. That's the story. Because we're all from Texas.
Oh, the Caraways?
Yeah. They got split up. And some kept the 2 R's and some went with one.
You see the report, Nemanja Bjelica is retiring.
No.
Oh, man, good career for him.
Due to injury. Yeah.
Greatest Golden State Warrior ever.
Oh, the Kings have waived Jeremy Lamb.
Oh.
We're here right
Well, that's
now.
not nice. Jeremy Lamb just didn't get it cut in his 6 minutes and 57 seconds last night. My man scored 6 points in 6 minutes, and they cut him today.
I think that the intention with Jeremy Lamb was for him to potentially play in Stockton, like to kind of rebuild and get ready. That was from Jason Anderson. Sorry if I did not say that before. We had some weird stuff on Saturday. Weird. It was a wild media session.
I saw some of the clips. Well, we lost Jeremy Lamb.
Damn.
All right.
Lamb, once again, we barely knew you.
6 minutes, 57 seconds last night. 6 points. He was a +9.
Oh, well, there you go, man.
He had 2 steals, 3 or 4 from the free throw line, 1 or 2 from the field. He got cut today.
Could have used him.
Well, that's what he did.
Well, we didn't hold on to him. We let him go.
Maybe this is a check. Maybe this is a chess move by Monty McNair.
They're down to 20, and then there were 20.
Cut him now, bring him back later, and there's some cerebral reason why.
He's trying to toy with everyone's emotions.
What is the purpose of stuff like this? Like, why do teams do this?
Okay, so
because there's still camp, there's still games, there's still basketball to be played.
Okay, so officially, training camp is over.
Oh,
so training camp is the 5 days before your first preseason game. Now we're in preseason, and this is so it's still a training camp of sorts, but technically speaking, it's kind of over. And now we're on to like phase 2. Why would you do this? Like it's possible that Jeremy Lamb could end up in Stockton, because he's trying to rebuild his value. You could also show teams that like, look, he can come into camp and he's functional and he's in good shape and he's ready to play, right? But you can also give him a little bit of bonus money. So if you do cut him and he goes to the G League, then he might take the assignment. Yeah, we can confirm that. I can confirm that he has been waived. And after clearing waivers, if he does clear waivers, there's a good chance he will go to Stockton. So according to a league source. As we speak, I'm just.
All right, dude. I don't understand this stuff with Stockton. Like, why do they have to go through all that? Why do they have to go through all this? Is it to clear waivers to give another team a chance in the league to sign him?
Yeah. Well, plus
instead of just saying, "Hey, you're going to Stockton."
It's also so. I mean, Jeremy Lamb is a player who's made a lot of money in his career. I'm not pocket watching at this point, but I think. I think he did
He'll
make
always be pocket watching.
like $10 or $11 million his first year. Like when he got traded here, he was part of a salary matching deal. So this is also a way to give a guy a little bit of money before he goes to play in the G League.
Oh,
because G League.
no, we doing this.
Oh, let's do it.
No, we doing
Let's
this.
do it. Jesse, one game under 500. This is for me to get to 500, I believe.
Is that right?
I think he is like a game under. We'll call it a game under.
Okay, we'll call it a game under. We have Ham here as the third party Ham. 10 seasons. No matter what Kenny says, there's no rule about going over or under the number.
Definitely should be, but that's a whole nother discussion.
10 seasons in the NBA for Jeremy Lamb, former number 12 overall pick, 2012.
I've got a number in my head.
He was drafted number 12 overall. The most money Jeremy Lamb has made in a single season
13 million?
was 10.5.
10.5.
10.5 million in 2020, 2021. 10 NBA seasons. Jeremy Lamb's career earnings are what?
I'm going with $59 million.
James Ham says $59 million. Kenny Caraway.
I'm gonna go.
This is intense.
It's the music.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna get crazy. I'm gonna go 71.
Whoa, $71 million for Kenny Caraway. To the champ,
Let me go 62 million.
$62 million. Ladies and gentlemen, James Ham, $54.3 million.
See, I miscalculated that. Yeah.
Kenny now 2 games under.
Oh.
Now they want to keep track. Now they want to keep track. Man.
$54.3 million. That's a decent chunk of change for Jeremy Lamb in his career.
It is.
That's good money. I wouldn't shy away from that money. Like, Kyle and I, we had last week, based off of Hoops Hype's story from Mike Scotto, the 50 highest paid players in NBA history to not make an All-Star team.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, it's stunning.
I know you told, who was number one?
Tobias Harris.
Oh, Tobias, that's right.
By the end of this season, Tobias Harris will have made $250 million.
And he's got another $50 million coming to him.
Probably.
Oh, boy.
Harrison Barnes is at number 7, and he was, by the end of this contract, he will be at roughly $220 million.
Good for him.
So I do want to read this because I was anxious to see it. There's multiple things at play here, including the fact it was a blowout. No, but that might not hold ground. The Cowboys and the 49ers last night.
Yeah.
In fact, did not beat Taylor Swift and the Kansas City Chiefs.
A blowout had a lot to do with it.
26 million viewers for last night's game.
What was
a phenomenal number. I believe it was 27 or 28.
Blowout had a lot to do with
it. A blowout had a ton to do with it. But I don't think the Chiefs game was close, unless it was the second Chiefs game where it was a 3-point game. It was the 3-point game.
That was a game.
That was the Taylor Swift game on NBC.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were back-to-back games with Taylor Swift.
The first one was the Bears game.
Fox, or
yeah,
whatever,
Fox in Kansas City, and then remember the next thing she was in New York. It was New York.
Yep.
Swift got us there. She got us there.
It was the blowout.
Yeah,
it's got to be the blowout,
or it was Swift.
You know,
Swifties. It's full force.
I was thinking about this game obviously all week, but just in the morning I was watching some stuff. Is this? I think we've done this before, but is this the best non-division rivalry in football?
The 49ers and Cowboys?
Yeah.
Sure.
Like you can always talk about like Eagles, Cowboys,
Sure.
but that's got, they play
Yeah.
each other every year.
I mean,
This
like
is
it
a
or
special
not,
game.
like Cowboys and Packers are probably up
It
there.
is, yeah.
49ers and Packers are probably up there.
I think
It's just all of the designated like big teams.
right.
I'd say it's probably 49ers Cowboys.
Bigger than Chiefs Bills though. Chiefs Bills was probably the one for a little bit.
Chiefs, Bills.
I'm
That's
not
even
for
on the
me.
radar.
It's
No?
not for me.
No. That's not even on the radar. I'm
Historically.
talking like historically.
Oh,
not-
historically, yeah, that's different. I thought we were just
Yeah.
on recent memory.
No. Historically,
Oh, recent for sure. Like
Yeah.
that's up there for sure. But historically, nah.
because I was getting that feeling. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, oh man, it's the Cowboys.
It's up there.
It's like when I was watching the stuff in the morning, this is big. Cowboys Niners. I think I forgot who the other matchup is, but they're Cowboys Steelers is a good one too. But that might be the other.
But all we're doing 49ers, Packers, Cowboys. We're just naming the biggest fan bases in the league. Like, and you're pairing them up in some way, shape, or form, and that's probably what you're winding up at.
True, but one of the things I was going to say with this Niners Cowboys thing is they're tied for first. They've met 9 times in the playoffs. That's where this stuff comes from. That's where it gets special, right? Like, because when championship, and then they both want to combine 10 Super Bowls. You know what I mean? So for a number of different years,
neither one of them can get to 6.
we're getting there this year. Cowboys,
you are. Yeah.
I don't know about you guys.
Who
I don't
got
know
to
when
6?
that's
The Steelers
happened.
did,
the
right?
Damn Steelers.
Was that the Cardinals
Snuck in
one?
the back door.
Was that the 6? Was that the one where they beat the Cardinals?
6 because they beat the Seahawks in a nondescript one.
Yeah, that was
gave 'em
before.
5. I
Yeah,
think they gave 'em 5.
that game was awful.
Yeah.
That Hasselbeck was the quarterback.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that game was terrible. That was awful. Awful. I want to get back to the Kings. As James fired off his Jeremy Lamb tweet.
Yep.
Shout out JA for that one too. Talked about Sasha. Talked about some of the. How about Davion? Davion was a guy we were watching closely through a variety of different workout videos, be it his or just spying him in the background of different ones. You talked about his work with shooting coaches. You spoke about that in your conversation with Davion Mitchell last week. What did you think of his game? What does that performance tell you, if anything, about the offseason he had and what we might see when this rotation gets cut down a little bit more in the upcoming weeks?
Yeah, I'm super excited to see how much he can impact the rotation because, talking about the whole JaVale and Chris Duarte dynamic, I actually think that Davion Mitchell could force the Kings' hands as well, where all of a sudden they have to steal minutes at the 2 for De'Aaron Fox, and then they've got to move, steal some more minutes at the 3 using Kevin Huerter over there, so Monk and Huerter and Fox and Mitchell can all get a lot of minutes. So for me, I was really excited for Davion to see how well he looked on the court. Like his shot was clean. He had confidence. That pass he made on the fast break was just spectacular. Just like, hey, give me a little Rod Tidwell here. Like go ahead and dance a little bit. Like show that, right? Like let me see more of what you got. And I thought I was super excited. He had 8 points. He had 3 assists. He had a couple of fouls and maybe a couple of turnovers that he wasn't happy about. But overall, I thought he was really good. And what we're hearing all throughout camp is he's just more vocal. He's found his voice at the NBA level, and then he's really barking out and really leading that second unit. And I think we've even seen it in our interviews with him. Like whether it was me, whether just the way he approached me leading up to that interview was so different than any Davion I've seen in the past. He walked up like, "Hey, what's up, my man?" Gave me 5. He sat down. We're like, this looks like a different dude. Damian.
Yeah, apparently you met in the 70s. Like,
no,
what's up, my man? Gave me 5.
No,
Shit me on the back.
We hugged it out. Like I was like, hey, look, this is a different dude. It's a different dude. Like I'm around these guys all the time. And sometimes it takes a while for someone to warm up. And I thought for me, like I hit him with the question a couple of times during the season about finding his role and finding his niche with the team. And I really thought he struggled with it. He did, and I thought he didn't know. He knew what he was supposed to do, but what he was supposed to do also didn't feel right as a basketball player to go in a game, settle in for like 3 minutes, go back out of the game, come back in 3 minutes later, and like everything is off. You don't know where you're supposed to be. The style of play is not built for him, at least a player he was last year. Now, if he's worked, like I know he does work. His work ethic has never been the question, ever. He's one of the hardest working players the Kings have ever had. And the fact is that you have to, once you get to the league, it's not just all about like working hard. You have to understand what type of work you have to do to get better. It can't just be I work harder than everyone, because everyone's working hard. You need to work smarter. And I think that that's what he did this season. It wasn't just being around Steph and being around his trainer. It was being around greatness, which is what he was. It wasn't just Steph. It was KD. It was like a handful of players that are universally accepted as great players. And he spent time with them. And he understands not what it takes to be great because you got to do this, and this work. At some point, mentally, you have to be around that and understand what these guys do that have made them great, how much work they put in, but also the type of work they put in, the work that really separates them. And I think he's on a different path now than he was before this offseason.
Do you think that Davion can be a leader on this team? And I ask that not saying like, does he have the qualities? I feel like obviously he has the qualities. We've seen him win a national championship that way. But do you think he has the presence now, the voice? You talk about him talking where he can be somebody that not the leader, but a leader, somebody that people follow and kind of respect the things that he's saying on a nightly basis.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was really interesting. If we go back to last season, he was part of the leadership council for the Sacramento Kings. So it was him, it was Sabonis, it was Fox, and it was Harrison Barnes. And we asked him a couple of times about the leadership council and what his role is. And his role, like he was honest, really like to sit there and listen. And it was like, well, that's not what I mean. You can be a good leader by listening and, not saying a lot, but having impactful words. But I also thought that like the reason why he was there was because the Kings know that he has something else in him to give, some more to give on that side. And in order for him to really fulfill his promise, he doesn't have to be Pat Bev. But what he does have to do is he has to have that edge, and he has to be able to hold his teammates accountable the way that Pat Bev has. He doesn't have to be running his mouth and yapping at other players, although he does do a certain amount of that. But I think it's funny. We've heard some of the stories with Trista, right, about him.
Yeah.
So he does have an edge to him, and he's got a personality and he's funny. But the fact that a lot of young players, they don't feel comfortable like putting that out there and showing that side of themselves. And it takes a long time because you walk into the league and you're supposed to fit in and you're supposed to be this for your team. And like if you don't really have a role that's defined and you don't really know your space, it's hard to be vocal. And so I think he's comfortable. He's comfortable in who he is and who he wants to be. And whether that's in Sacramento or somewhere else down the road, taking another step. He also understands that he plays behind a great player. And in order to be a good teammate and to help this team win, he's going to have to do dirty work, but he's also going to have to be humble sometimes. And he's not going to have to force someone's hand and say, I have to play or I'm not playing enough and cause problems. He's got to be a good teammate. And again, it's not easy, but I think he's on a good path.
Yeah, I think he said as much to you. I'll have to paraphrase a little bit. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but it was like be a star in your role or something along those lines is something that he said to you in your conversation last week. And that's all you can ask from a dude who plays behind an all NBA player. Like, I'm going to be a star in the role that I have, and the role that I have right now is behind De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, I mean, how would you like to be the backup point guard on the Golden State Warriors for like 6 years through their championship years?
Yeah.
Behind Steph Curry. Well, I think he'd love it because number one, you get the same championship ring he does, except for yours has your last name on it, which is Livingston, and everyone else has their last name, but you still get one of those, and you still get those playoff checks, and you still get to walk around and call yourself a champ. And so there's a point where, though, you have to be willing to accept that, and it's really tough for young players because everybody comes in the league thinking that they're going to be the next big thing. I would say for every player that there's so many players that walk in and they think that they're the guy, right? They've always been the guy. They're the best on their AAU team, the best on their third grade team, the best on their high school team, the best on their college team. They get to the NBA, they think they're going to be the best. And very few guys, like the one guy I can remember that was so much better as a pro, who has been so much better as a pro than ever was in college or at any other point in his career, it's Donovan Mitchell. Like this isn't who he was before. Like Fox has known him forever. It's like we always knew he's an athlete and that he's a great defender and he's a great dude. Everyone likes him, but he spent his entire pre-draft workout trying to convince everybody he could play point guard at the NBA level. Because that's what he thought he had to do. That's what his agent told him he had to do in order to get drafted. He shows up in the league and all of a sudden he's averaging 25 points a game in his third season. And he's just so much better than that's so rare. And it's almost like a bad thing for the group of players that are coming up behind him, because it's really hard to be a good, like a superstar NBA player that isn't drafted in the top 5. We stumble upon them. There are guys that are like major projects, guys like Giannis, or even like a quiet guy like Kawhi at the college level is still a project. He gets to the pros, he ends up being better. But it's just not that, it doesn't happen all that often. And so for a guy like Davion, I hope it works out. I hope that he finds his success because he does do the work and he is trying to be better.
I think he can achieve all that. I think he can be a superstar in his role. Me and Damien have talked about it a number of different times. I think he's going to have a really good season for what his job is, and he's going to maximize what he can get out of this season and the impact that he can have. I think he's going to reach his ceiling with this particular team. That doesn't mean he's going to score 20, but maybe in his role, the best he can do is 11 points per game, shooting 38% from 3. Like, he's going to maximize whatever it is he can do with the squad this year. I really believe that.
I don't see him as a 6 point per game guy or whatever it was he averaged last year. Mm-hmm. And I also will tell you, I think his career path could be very similar to a guy like Kyle Lowry, where he gets an opportunity a little bit later, takes it, runs with it, and becomes a much better player.
We appreciate you so much for being with us, James. We appreciate you spending some extra time here with us today in studio. Of course, you can catch the Insiders Monday through Friday, 10 to 12 on ESPN 1320. You can